My sister skipped my daughter's memorial to throw a launch party at my inherited cabin, then called it a pity picnic on Instagram. So I had her evicted. Now she's couch surfing. I feel nothing. I still remember the exact moment the doctor said the word degenerative. It sounded like a punishment, like something you got for living too soft or too selfish. I sat there staring at the gray smudge on the MRI, thinking there must be some mistake. Maybe he was reading someone else's scan. My name is Delilah. I'm 41 years old, and I live in Asheville, North Carolina. I run a tiny antique bookshop on Main Street that no one seems to find unless they're lost or lonely. Lately, it's been more lonely than anything else. Ran was 17. My baby? She'd been complaining about muscle weakness and these weird dizzy spells for months. The first doctor thought it was just stress. Then it got worse. She started falling. Her legs would shake, and her hands wouldn't grip the pen right. Eventually, we found out what it really was, a rare, degenerative illness with no cure. Just a slow unraveling. I called my mother right after we left the hospital. I was sitting in the car in the parking garage, still trying to breathe like a normal person. Mom, I said, it's bad. Ren's sick. There was a pause. Then she said, well, at least you caught it early. That was it. No, I'm coming over. No, how can I help? Just that dry, lukewarm sentence like she was commenting on a bad weather forecast. I didn't hear much from her after that. A few polite texts. My stepfather Gerald sent me an article about gluten intolerance, like maybe that was it. My younger sister Eden, though, she called the next morning. Hey, I need your advice on this pitch deck. Investors are coming next week. I blinked at the phone. Eden, did Mom tell you what's going on with Ren? Yeah, I heard. That's awful. Her voice was flat, distracted. So about the deck. That was Eden. Always moving. Always building her empire, even if it was just air and buzzwords. She'd started this fashion startup right out of college. It had never made a dime, but she dressed like Anna Wintour and posted motivational quotes on Instagram like she was changing the world. And I, idiot that I am, kept wiring her money every few months, just enough to keep the illusion alive. I was behind on rent at the store. The insurance bills from Ren's hospital visits were stacking up like junk mail. I hadn't slept more than 4 hours in a night since spring. Still, I wired Eden another $1,200 that week. She said she needed it for samples. I'll pay you back, I swear, she said. She always said that. That night, I sat in the dark with Ren on the couch. She was asleep, her head on my lap, her breath shallow and warm. I stared at the blank TV screen and tried not to cry. No one was coming. Not my mother. Not Gerald. Not Eden. I was it. And for some stupid reason, I still kept giving. It was the smell of cedar that hit me first, sharp and old, like memory itself. The lake cabin had been closed up for years, but the moment I stepped inside, it was like stepping back into some version of my childhood that only existed in fragments. My grandfather died in early spring. We hadn't been close in the traditional sense. He wasn't warm, not the hugging kind, but he'd always sent Ren books with handwritten notes in the margins. Little things, quiet gestures. And when the will was read, I learned he'd left me 2 things. His lakeside cabin and the deed to his bookstore, the one he'd run for nearly 40 years before retiring. Not a dime for my mother. Nothing for Eden. Just me. The lawyer called it a clear and binding decision. My mother called it a mistake. It should have gone to the family, she said when I told her. You know Eden could have used the space. She still can, I said. I'm not selling it, but she can stay there for a while. She put me on speakerphone. Gerald chimed in immediately. Delilah, come on. You've always been the strong one. Eden's struggling. You can do this. I said yes. Of course I did. That's what I did, said yes. But I made sure the deed stayed in my name. Eden moved in a week later, treating it like a fresh chapter in her brand journey. I figured she'd use it for peace, maybe find some focus, take care of it while I handled Ren's treatments and tried not to lose the shop. Instead, she invited 10 people up there for something called a soft launch retreat. She posted pictures like it was an influencer getaway. Racks of clothes draped across the porch railings, a pop-up showroom in the living room, twinkle lights in the trees, champagne in everyone's hand. I found out through Instagram. Is this live right now? I texted her. She didn't reply. 2 days later, she called like nothing had happened. It was amazing, she gushed. You should have seen the turnout. Such great energy. I said nothing. I know it wasn't exactly what you envisioned, she added, but honestly, this cabin is perfect for networking. Grandpa would have loved that it's being used. I wanted to scream. Instead, I just nodded like she could hear that over the phone. That night, I found an old picture of the cabin from when I was 10. Just me and Grandpa on the dock, fishing poles in hand. I hadn't thought of that moment in years. He hadn't said much that day, just handed me a sandwich and told me that sometimes being quiet was the only way to hear yourself think. It was the first time I realized he'd see me, even when no one else did. And now Eden was stomping all over that memory, turning it into a hashtag. But I still let her stay. Ren died on a Wednesday morning just before sunrise. The nurse was adjusting her when the machine started beeping. I was holding her hand, reading aloud from one of her favorite old fantasy novels. She loved stories with maps and chosen ones. I didn't even realize she was gone until the nurse gently touched my arm. I think she's at peace now, she whispered. I didn't cry right away. I just sat there stroking her hair, still reading even after the words stopped making sense. I went home and sat in the tub with my clothes still on. The water turned cold, but I didn't move. I kept thinking I should call someone. I should call my mom, but instead, I just stared at the water. It took me 2 days to plan a small memorial. I didn't want anything big, just close family, a few of Ren's friends from the hospital, the hospice chaplain. Sunday at 10, under the old tree behind the bookshop. That was Ren's favorite spot. She used to say the branches looked like arms holding the sky up. I sent the group text on Friday night. Simone replied 5 minutes later. Sunday's no good. Eden's launch party is that day. We've already sent invites. That was it. No, I'm so sorry. No, can we reschedule? Just a conflict of interest, like I'd booked a dentist appointment at the wrong time. I read it twice, then once more, trying to make it mean something else. Ren was her only grandchild. I called. No answer. Called again. Straight to voicemail. On Sunday morning, I wore Ren's favorite color, forest green, and walked down to the bookshop with trembling legs. I half expected them to show up anyway, even late, maybe with flowers. But the only family member who came was my cousin Victor, who drove 3 hours from Raleigh. He hugged me tight and didn't let go. The ceremony was quiet. A few poems, a few stories. I placed Ren's favorite book, the one we were reading when she passed, at the base of the tree. A nurse from her ward cried harder than I did. I felt empty, too tired to cry. Afterward, Victor handed me his phone. You need to see this, he said. On the screen was Eden's Instagram story. Champagne flutes clinking, people laughing on the deck of the cabin, a smiling group photo under fairy lights. And then, the worst part, a selfie of Eden with 2 women I'd never met. The caption, meanwhile, the martyr's sister is having a pity picnic in town. Priorities, babe. I stared at it, my body buzzing with something beyond grief. Shock? Rage? Numbness? Victor was watching me, his jaw tight. I didn't want to show you, but you needed to know. That cabin? That belongs to you. I nodded, still looking at the screen. The image blurred as my eyes filled with tears I didn't want to shed in front of anyone. Ren was gone, and my family, my own blood, couldn't even pause their photo op to bury her. That was the moment something broke inside me. Something permanent. The cabin was still in my name. I kept telling myself that as I flipped through the folder in my lap. The deed, utility records, printed screenshots of Eden's party flyers. Everything I needed to prove what I already knew. Eden didn't own that place. She never had. It was a Tuesday morning when I finally drove out to the county sheriff's office. I hadn't slept in 2 days. I brought the folder, a thermos of coffee, and the kind of determination that only comes after you've buried your child alone. The woman at the front desk was kind but skeptical. You want to report your sister for trespassing on a property you let her stay at? I didn't give her permission to run a business out of it, I said. She's hosting public events, selling merchandise. I have proof. I laid out everything. Pictures from her social media, listings on event sites, even one where she called it her personal design compound. That got the deputy's attention. By Thursday afternoon, the paperwork was approved. On Friday evening, a pair of deputies drove up to the cabin. Eden was throwing some kind of influencer dinner. White linen tables, string quartet, people in oversized sunglasses sipping rose. I stayed in the car across the road, parked just behind the trees. The moment they knocked on the door, I saw her step out, all smiles and confusion. That smile dropped fast when they asked for ID. I couldn't hear what they said, but I saw her arms waving, her voice getting louder, more frantic. She pointed back at the house, probably telling them I gave it to her. One of the deputies shook his head and held up the deed. I thought she might throw something. Instead, she stood frozen while her guests stared, whispering. The photographer lowered his camera. One woman got in her car and left without even saying goodbye. The deputies escorted Eden off the property. She wasn't in cuffs, just humiliated. My phone started buzzing before they'd even reached the bottom of the porch steps. Simone, Gerald, Eden, all ringing one after another. I let them all go to voicemail. That night, I sat on the couch with a bottle of wine. No glass, just me and the bottle and the blue light of the silent TV. I thought I'd feel vindicated. Instead, I felt nothing. No joy, no power. Just the hollow ache behind my ribs and the strange, awful quiet of a house that was still missing a daughter. He didn't knock. I heard the car door slam, then heavy footsteps on the porch. Gerald always walked like he owned every room, like authority came built into his shoes. I didn't even get a full breath in before he opened the door and stormed into my living room. You humiliated her, he barked. In front of everyone. Guests. Potential buyers. You think that was necessary? I stayed on the couch, blanket around my legs, the wine bottle from last night still half finished on the coffee table. I didn't flinch. She was trespassing, I said. I handled it. He looked around like he was taking inventory, like he wanted to comment on the dust or the half-eaten sandwich on the armrest. Instead, he pointed a thick finger at me. You embarrassed this family. I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. This family embarrassed itself the day it skipped Ren's memorial to host a launch party. She was grieving, he snapped. We all were. Really? I said, sitting up straighter. Because Eden seemed fine clinking champagne glasses while I scattered my daughter's ashes. His face flushed, but he kept going. You've always been dramatic, always needing to be the victim. But Eden's trying to build something and you just destroyed it. I stood now, my voice steady but louder. I destroyed it? She used a cabin I owned without permission. She threw parties while I was burying my child. And you're lecturing me about what she's building. You've always been the strong one, he said again, like it was some sacred excuse. We leaned on you because you could handle it. No, I said, stepping toward him. You leaned on me because I let you. Because every time you needed money or a place or someone to blame, I took it. He started to speak, but I cut him off. Not anymore. He shook his head in disgust. You're being cruel. This isn't what Grandpa would have wanted. I smiled, cold and certain. Funny, because Grandpa left it to me. Not you. Not Eden. Me. That hit him. He looked at the floor for a second, jaw tight. Then he straightened. You'll regret this, he said. When you're alone. I've already been alone, I said. 4 months. Maybe years. But at least now I'm not pretending. He turned without another word, slamming the door behind him so hard a framed photo of Ren fell off the shelf. I picked it up carefully. It was the one of her at age 10, wearing a crown made of wildflowers, squinting into the sun. 10 minutes later, Simone called. Her voice was soft at first. Honey, I just want to understand why. You want to understand? I said. You skipped your granddaughter's funeral. She didn't apologize. She just sighed. You've always been sensitive. But this was vindictive. It's not what Grandpa would have wanted. No, I said. But it's what I want. For once. And I hung up. The deputy called me 2 days after the eviction. You're going to want to come see this, he said. I thought maybe Eden had broken back in, maybe trashed the porch or stolen a few things on her way out. I wasn't prepared for what I actually saw. The cabin looked like a crime scene. The front door was hanging off one hinge, and someone had spray-painted "Thief" across the side in red. Inside, the living room was gutted. Antique shelves overturned, shattered porcelain on the hardwood. The bookshelf Grandpa built himself was snapped in half, like someone had stomped it in a rage. The bedroom was worse. Every mirror smashed. Every drawer emptied. The mattress ripped open, feathers and stuffing everywhere. Someone had taken a knife to the curtains. The deputy walked beside me, flipping through photos on his tablet. Security system caught the whole thing, he said. She came alone. Drove up at 1:30 in the morning. Stayed for just over an hour. I stood in the kitchen, my hand on the countertop, breathing slow. There were still footprints in the dust from where she danced at that launch party. Now it looked like a ghost town after a war. I need to press charges, I said. My voice surprised me how flat it was. How calm. You sure? The deputy asked. She's family. No, I said. She's not. Back at home, I pulled up the security footage myself. There she was. Eden in a hoodie and leggings, hair pulled back, pacing like a caged animal. She was talking to herself, muttering things I couldn't make out. Then she grabbed a floor lamp and hurled it at the wall. Didn't make me angry. Didn't make me cry. It just confirmed what I'd been trying not to admit for years. She didn't care about me. Not really. She only cared about what I could give her. That night, I sat on the couch with the sheriff's business card and my laptop open to the insurance claim form. My phone buzzed every 20 minutes. Simone, Gerald, Eden. All of them had discovered the arrest by then. Eden's last voicemail was the worst. I hope you're happy, she said, her voice raw. You've destroyed everything. You're disgusting. I didn't even listen to the rest. Just deleted it. The cabin was ruined, but the ownership wasn't. The deed still said Delilah M. Harper in black ink. I poured myself a glass of water, sat on the floor next to Ren's bookshelf, and stared at her photo for a long time. I thought taking back the cabin would feel like justice, but it didn't. It felt like sweeping up after a flood. She was gone, and Eden had torched what little was left of peace. And yet, for the first time, I didn't chase forgiveness. I let it burn. The charges stuck. Eden was officially being charged with property destruction and trespassing. The court date was set. She had a public defender, and the sheriff's office said she'd been released on bond with conditions. That was when the calls really ramped up. First Gerald, then Simone, one after the other, like they were tag-teaming their outrage. You've gone too far, Gerald said on voicemail. It was a mistake, not a crime. Simone's message came next. Family doesn't do this to each other. Eden's in pieces. Drop the charges, please. I didn't answer either one. A week later, Simone showed up at the shop, standing awkwardly by the poetry section like she was a lost customer. You have to drop this, she said the second I approached. It's tearing us apart. I just stared at her. Us? There's no us. Not anymore. Her eyes welled up fast. She's your sister. No, I said. She's a grown woman who trashed a house she didn't own and mocked me while I buried my daughter. Her lip trembled. You're ruining this family. I laughed, a small bitter sound. You think I ruined it? I was the only one holding it together. That was the last time I saw her in person. Later that night, she left one final voicemail. Her voice was calm, almost rehearsed. You've ruined us, she said. I hope you can live with that. Played it twice, then deleted it. After that, I logged into the family trust account, the one I had been secretly funding since Grandpa died. It was supposed to help cover emergencies, medical bills, rent, education. In reality, it had turned into a slush fund for Eden's failed projects and Gerald's golf trips. I emptied it, not into anyone's pockets, just back into my own savings. Then I closed the account permanently. No announcement, no explanation, just gone. A few days later, Victor called. "They're freaking out," he said. "Guess they finally noticed the money dried up." "Good," I said. There was a pause. Then he added, "They never deserved you." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just sat there holding the phone, listening to the silence on the other end like it was some kind of healing. It didn't feel like revenge. Felt like a locked door. Like pulling the chain across after a lifetime of people walking in without knocking. I thought I might feel guilty, but I didn't. I felt clean. I didn't hear anything for a while. After I shut down the trust account and stopped replying to voicemails, the calls finally slowed. My house was quiet again. My phone stayed silent for entire days. It was eerie but peaceful. Then Victor texted me a link. "Thought you'd want to see this," he wrote. It was a post from one of Eden's old college friends. Apparently, she'd been fired from her only part-time design gig after her arrest made the local news. Not a good look for the brand, the post quoted someone saying. Unstable energy, whatever that meant. I clicked through a few more tagged photos and pieced it together. Eden was couch surfing. She'd stayed with a girl from her yoga class for 2 nights before wearing out her welcome. Then a graphic designer who owed her a favor. By the end of the week, she was posting passive-aggressive quotes about betrayal and snakes in the grass. Still never mentioned my name. Not directly, but it didn't take a genius to read between the lines. Then came the phone calls. Not from her, but from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Aunt Denise left a message. "I don't know what's going on, but Eden's really hurting. She says you turned on her after Grandpa died. Is that true?" Uncle Pete texted. "Whatever happened, we're family. You shouldn't let her sleep on strangers' couches. That's not right." I didn't respond. Not at first. But when the 4th cousin called, a woman who hadn't even sent Ren a birthday card in years, I'd had enough. So I made a folder. Screenshots, voicemails, photos from the vandalized cabin, the sheriff's report, a timeline of everything Eden had done, including the party during Ren's memorial and the spray-painted insult on my wall. Then I sent it to each of them. No commentary, no dramatics, just the facts. The call stopped. Completely. Victor called a few days later. "You really shut it down, huh?" "I'm tired," I said. "Tired of fixing what they break. You don't owe anyone a thing," he told me. "Not after what they put you through." He was right. I'd spent years cleaning up behind them. Years sending wires and swallowing insults and pretending Eden just needed time. But now she was out there, facing consequences, not because I wanted to ruin her, but because I finally stepped out of the way and let reality catch up. For once, I wasn't the net. I wasn't the buffer. I was just done. The first time I got on a train by myself, I was 35 and already a mother. It was a business thing, back when I still did antique book fairs across the state. I barely remember that trip, just the aching worry of being away from Ren, the guilt that followed me like a shadow. This time was different. I boarded in Asheville with one small suitcase and no real plan, just a window seat, a train heading north, and silence. For the first 3 hours, I did nothing but stare out the window. The landscape rolled by like a slow unraveling. Hills, trees, rooftops, ocean. It was the first time in over a year that no one needed anything from me. I got off in a little town in coastal Maine, where the air smelled like salt and wood smoke. I hadn't been there in 20 years. But Marina lived nearby, and I remembered the last postcard she'd sent, tucked inside a first edition Ren had loved. "Come visit if you ever need to feel new again." I called her from a payphone at the station, mostly because I wasn't ready to use my own voice yet. "Delilah," she said, "is it really you?" We met that evening at a cafe near the water. She looked exactly the same, wild curly hair, wide smile, eyes that saw too much and never judged you for it. We ordered coffee and pie, and we talked for 3 hours without even noticing. We didn't rehash everything, not the hospital, not Eden, not the cabin. But we talked about grief, about how time doesn't really heal so much as make the pain more livable. Marina told me she'd lost her mom the year before. "I still hear her voice when I do the dishes," she said. "I don't mind it." I knew what she meant. I still heard Ren humming to herself when I closed the shop at night. I stayed with Marina for a week. We read old books, walked the trails behind her cottage, talked late into the night. I laughed more in those 7 days than I had in the past 7 months. When I got back home, I sold the cabin. It wasn't about the money. It was about letting go. The sale went through in 3 weeks. I put half the money into the bookstore, new shelves, new lighting, a tiny espresso counter in the back. The rest I tucked into savings just in case. Customers started trickling back in, curious about the changes. One of them asked if the place was under new ownership. I smiled and said, nope, just finally doing things my way. And for the first time in years, I wasn't weighed down by what I'd lost. I was grateful for what I still had. The bookstore, a few true friends, a second chance at peace. I wasn't healed. Not yet, but I was finally starting. It came in the middle of a quiet Tuesday morning, one of those gray, sleepy ones where the sky can't decide between fog and rain. I was dusting the classics section in the shop when I heard the chime of my laptop. One new email. Subject, can we talk? It was from Eden. That was it. No greeting, no context. Just those 3 words and her name at the bottom. I stared at the screen for a long time. It was almost funny how short it was. Like everything that happened, the money, the cabin, Ren, the charges, the years of slow bleeding could be undone with a subject line and a maybe. I didn't open it. I didn't need to read the words to know what would be inside. A request? A justification? Maybe an apology buried somewhere between deflection and guilt. Maybe she'd tell me she was struggling, that she missed me. Maybe she'd say she'd changed, but it didn't matter. I hovered the mouse over the trash icon and clicked. Deleted. I stood up, stretched my back, and walked to the front of the store. Marina was there already, waiting by the register with 2 coffees in hand. She smiled when she saw me, easy, warm, the kind of smile that made you feel like you were exactly where you were supposed to be. You okay? She asked. I nodded. Just deleted a ghost. She didn't press, just handed me the coffee and gestured toward the window seat we turned into our morning ritual. I sank into the cushion, holding the mug between my palms like a small anchor. Outside, the street was quiet. A couple walked by with a golden retriever. Somewhere down the block, someone laughed. For the first time in a long time, I felt completely present. Not haunted, not hunted, not hollowed out. Just here. My family hadn't broken me. They'd freed me. Not all endings needed a final fight. Some just needed a boundary, a door quietly closed. I took a sip of coffee and opened the shop an hour later, same as always. But everything felt different. Because for once I wasn't surviving someone else's chaos. I was living my own peace.